Greetings and welcome to another Lessons with Odin. Today I'm going to show you how to make a super simple dangly drop bit that you can use to accent a variety of things such as pendants and cords. I'm not sure when I'm going to be posting this video, either before or after I do the shibori video, but I will have a video where I show you how to attach a drop to your shibori pendants to make it look a little more interesting and such. Alright, so you're going to need some sort of drop or pendant, top drilled pendant. I'm going to be using a spike bead for this video because I like spike beads and such. You will need size 11 beads for the primary base. You also will need size 8 seed beads if you choose. You can also replace the size 8 beads with 3mm crystal if you so choose. That is where it's going to go in those giant green bits. What we're going to do. And you also will need 15s if you want to make it super long and such. Now let's get started. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take our drop bead and kind of look at the width and figure out how many beads we're going to be able to fit around there. I'm going to take my needle and thread. I have a size 10 needle with some sono, just because that's what I had lying around. And I'm going to leave about a 4 to 6 inch tail, and I'm just going to hang on to it because we're not going to use it very often. And I'm going to thread on 7 size 11 seed beads. Then I'm going to pass through. Whoop. See, I have 7 beads there. I'm going to pass through the spike bead again, so that all 7 of my beads end up covering half of my piece. I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to put on 7 beads and then pass through the other side again. Then I end up with 2 sets of 7 on each side. Now what I'm going to do, in order to secure this tail in place, I'm going to move around in one of these halves all the way over until I meet that thread. Okay. And what I'm going to do is basically do an overhand knot in order to secure it in place. I'm going to go through the spike bead once more and pass through the beads on the other side. And now what I'm going to do after I've done that is add one more size 11 seed bead and pass over to the next bead on the other side. Like that. So I close the gap that's in those seed beads over there. I'm going to pass through add one more, and then I'm going to pass over the gap into the next seed bead. Okay? Now when you're doing this, you want to make sure your entire ring has an even number of beads, because what we're going to use to attach everything together is a peyote stitch. So I'm going to start off with my peyote stitch. This will be my base row. These 16 beads. And I will start by adding one, skipping over the next bead. My thread is coming from this bead, so I'm going to skip over this one and thread through this one. Once more, I'm going to add one bead, skip over the next bead, and pass through the second bead until they kind of sit up against each other on the side like that. That's what you're going to start to get. I'll show you guys one more time. We're going to pick up one size 11 seed bead. We're going to skip over the next seed bead over and pass through the second. Do this until you have run out of beads. Okay, so I am on my last stitch, and I will need to step up afterwards, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to move down in order to close the beads up a little bit. This one tapers downward, so I'm probably going to use smaller beads in order to close it up a little bit and make the bead wrap around the piece a little nicer. So in order to do that, I'm going to pick up my last size 11 seed bead for this row. I'm going to skip over the next one, go through the second one over, and the one directly underneath it. Like that. And I will be ready to add on the next row. Now, as you can see, the peyote stitch formed all these little gaps that I can use to put my next beads into, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. But I'm going to shrink everything a little bit, so I'm going to use a size 15 bead, and I'm going to, my thread is coming from here, I'm going to pass over here through the gap. Now, depending on what your pendant looks like and what shape it is, you might have some thread showing as you do these, just because of the way the bead shapes shrink, and it might not appreciate it. So you'd be prepared to use a thread that matches what you are doing. Once more, I added on one size 15, and then I'm going to move over to the next gap here. And that is what I am ending up with. Once more, I'm going to pick up a size 15 seed bead. And then I'm going to move over to the next gap. Do that until you have run out of gaps. Okay, so now I am on my last stitch, and I think I'm going to do one more row with this piece. Again, it's all up to you how you want to end a piece. It would look good just like this, where everything is a little even and flattened with the size 15s, but I think I'm going to go one step further. Just to show you guys, so I'm going to add on my last size 15. I'm going to jump through my next gap and the first size 15 on the round. And that will complete the row. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to do this pretty much the same thing, except I'm going to be jumping to size 15 beads on the base. So I've added one size 15, and what I'm going to do is jump over to the next size 15. And it'll kind of not sit right because it's underneath a bead that is wider than it, but once you start putting them together, it'll start to pinch together nicer, kind of like a bezeled cabochon if you've ever done those before. So once more, I'm going to add on one more size 15, and I'm going to jump to the next size 15. So you end up like that. Keep doing that until you run out of 15s. Now I am at my last set, so what I'm going to do is basically jump to the next 15. And that's it. I'm not going to step up this row, because next turn I'm going to actually go upwards, and I have finished going downwards, so that's all I need to do. And the only thing I have to do after that is to travel. Now take a look at how your beads fit on the piece. If you like it to be a little bit tighter, I would recommend passing through the 15 beads once more, just to kind of tighten everything together and make it fit a bit better on the shape of your pendant. Okay, so in order for me to travel up to my next row, what I'm basically going to do is I'm starting off at a 15 right here. I want to end up all the way up to these top beads so I can continue my peyote stitch up here. So from the size 15, I'm basically going to travel up through 3 size 11 seed beads. Like this. And then I will be ready for the next row. Now, I think I have enough size 11 seed beads for this, and I kind of want to expand the row. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in 1 row of size 8 seed beads. So I just add in a size 8 on my needle. Then I'm going to jump the gap and pass it through the next size 11 seed bead over. Just like we did with the regular peyote stitch, I'm going to do it again. Adding 1 size 8 seed bead, jumping over to the next gap. Do this until you've run out of gaps. Alright, now that I am at my last size 11 seed bead, I'm going to step up simply by passing up through the size 8 seed bead. And then I think 1 row of size 8s are good enough for me. And don't forget you can also replace this section with 3mm Swarovski crystal. I wouldn't use off-brand ones because they are very, very large, and the opening, forcing the beads to open that far would not be nice to your thread. So that's what I'd recommend. Feel free to try what you want. But I think I'm pretty much going to mirror what is down here. So I'm going to add 3 rows of size 11, and then 2 rows of size 15. So I'll see you guys once I have that finished. And this is my first round finished above the size 8s. What will be a little difficult to see is where you need to step up, but you need to remember to step up, you have to go up through the first size 11 bead that you made. Like that. Everything kind of stacks into each other, and it's very, very hard to distinguish what is actually sticking up. So just be careful when you step up. Alright, so this is what I have left over after I have added 3 rows of size 11s and 2 rows of size 15s. Now what you can do is you can end your threads here and just make a bunch of these components and wait to see what you want to put them in your project, or you can you can make them with a bail and just hang them up on various projects that you have. So I will show you how to make a bit of a simple bail in order to make these a little bit more hangable. When I show you the shibori method to add these onto your shibori pendants, there's a little bit of a different technique to use, but this is a way just to make them pretty and hangable. Basically what I'm going to do is add on 3 size 15s, 1 size 11, and 3 size 15s. Maybe. It'll go on my needle. There we go. Now this amount could change depending on the width of your piece at top. Mine is pretty wide. So, I'm going to see where my thread is coming out of the left side of one bead. So what I'm going to do is find the bead that's directly across and also pass through the left side of it. Like this. So that it kind of makes a little handle, if you will. Then I'm going to pass through those 7 beads again, the 3 15s, the 11, and the 3 15s. And then I'm going to pass through the right side of the bead right here, going in that way. So you have 2 threads coming out of 2 different sides of each bead. You might need to play with it in order to get the tension proper and to make sure all the threads are where they need to be. So you can leave the bail like that. You can go back through the beads again, back and forth, in order to reinforce these threads. You can even add an even tinier hole by going up through 3 of the seed beads and the size 11 seed beads. You can add a little picot of 3 more size 11 seed beads and run it back through the size 11 like that, so that it hangs down even further. Just like that. And in order to end the thread, we're going to pass down the 3 seed beads on the loop bail thingy and back through the bead on the base row. Then we're just going to simply do some half hitch knots in order to secure everything in place. So I'm going to take my thread in a random location that's nearby. I'm going to pass my needle under the threads there. I'm going to form a loop with my working thread, pass my needle through the loop, and pull it tight, and there's a knot that should form. I'm going to go down a couple more beads and a couple rows of beads. Maybe. If the size 15s are giving you problems, feel free to switch to a smaller needle like size 12 or whatnot. So I'm going to pass down a couple of more seed beads. I'm going to do another half hitch knot. Then pass through a couple more seed beads. And I like to do, depending on what the project's for, 2 to 3 half hitch knots before I hide the threads and cut everything short. Like that. And then with the tail you can do the same thing. You can put on a couple of half hitch knots and then cut it short. You don't need as many because there's the overhand knot that you did in the very beginning to help secure it. And that's it. And there you have it. You have this wonderful little component that you can use pretty much on anything and everything. Try it with drops, briolettes, random weird shapes. Random weird shapes that aren't really as easily used, and kind of experiment with different stitches to see what you guys come up with. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know down below if there's anything that you would like me to do specifically. If anybody has any favorite stitches they would like to learn, or anything, what have you, leave me a comment and I will be sure to get to you. In any case, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.